Oh, now there go all my bubble wraps. So, my recent illness, which has lasted for some time, and the whole coronavirus craze have got me kind of thinking about things, and about sort of the disincentives and the nature of the free society or whatever in the wake of a potential, pandemic type situation. Luckily, this doesn't seem, this is no worse, I would guess, than the, no matter what happens, than the 1919 flu, the Spanish flu. The way the numbers kind of combine and everything, that's probably the worst result we're going to see. And I would suggest that with modern medicine, etc., it's probably going to be better than that, even though currently the percentages appear quite high. I think they're inflated for various reasons. But anyway, first, about my illness. So, because let's make this about me, right? Well, that's how I got to thinking about it. To give the background on that, I went to the dentist, this would be mid-January, so about 6-7 weeks ago. And while I was there, a lot of blood's running down my throat and everything. My throat starts feeling icky. It's one of very few situations where I'm in anything like close contact with other people. There's almost nothing that I do in my life where I'm around other people much. I go once a week to the bar, and that definitely is a potential, especially if I'm sharing a pipe or whatever with someone. Because I do sometimes let people take a puff off of it, and I wipe it, but whatever. I'm not like sterilizing the mouthpiece. Terrible idea, I know. But some blood went down my throat. I thought on my walk home, I felt kind of less than well. It was chilly, very cold day on the way back. And I was feeling a little feverish when I got home and everything. And, honestly, most things don't incubate that quickly. So, and certainly coronavirus does not, from what I see online. It's like 5 to 6 days incubation period before you start showing symptoms. So I probably did not catch whatever it was at the dentist. The turnaround time's too quick. But it could have been that the added stress of having really a deep cleaning is what it came down to, where they're getting under the gums and everything. And the blood that's going down and everything increased whatever was already in me. Although the dental assistant, the hygienist who was doing the cleaning, had a bad ear infection a week before that. So who knows, But, chances are, given incubation periods, etc., that I had caught it maybe a few days earlier or whatever. It just seemed like, wow, that was a fast-hitting thing. And at first, when I was on my way home, I thought it was just the blood coming down and whatever. But yeah, I was sick for a couple of days, and it was a pretty bad sickness. And then it didn't go away right away. I kept a cough, which I sort of blamed on mold. So I started cleaning some of the mold around. Well, things kind of cleared up. I still had a little bit of a cough, so I was a little worried, but I thought maybe it was mold still that I hadn't caught everywhere. I know I haven't caught all of the mold that's in my house. And then after a week or two, I got sick again. And then after I got sick that second time, my wife got sick, and then hers was really bad for her. So I get pretty bad sicknesses fairly regularly. She doesn't tend to get really sick, but this was the first time in her life that she got one that kind of settled behind her ears, and just this heavy amount of post-nasal drip and all this going on. Um, and hers lasted for quite a long time. Mine hadn't. Mine had been like, it peaked, and then I felt fairly well, and then it peaked again, and then I felt fairly well. But she was sick for like a couple weeks straight, and now she had just started getting healthy. And now I caught one or got something again, and it feels like the same thing. And again, you know, and it got me to thinking, because of all this coronavirus scare, fuck, man, there was no toilet paper at my grocery store. What the hell? You know? I can't imagine toilet paper being the thing, like the one thing that people definitely stock up on, but the entire aisle was empty, and, you know, for that aisle to be empty under these kind of conditions, you have to assume they didn't have additional shipments in. It just doesn't seem like the thing. Obviously, everybody needs toilet paper, more or less, but there are substitutes for it. The one thing that I need toilet paper for is when I have a cold, I absolutely need something to blow my nose in. So, you know, I'm not someone who buys Kleenexes because they're more expensive, so I buy rolls of toilet paper, and when I get sick, I'm like, okay, here, I park a roll of toilet paper next to myself, and it, you know, it tends to be soft enough. But the actual toilet paper, there's, you know, the workaround. You can take newspaper, you can fold it up and get it kind of pretty soft, and it actually, it works okay. It's not great, but it works okay. But you can't blow your nose in that shit. It's not absorbent enough, right? It can scrape shit off your ass enough that, you know, you can wash yourself, but you can't comfortably blow your nose in it. But anyway, I just can't imagine that that's like the one thing that was just absolutely so completely out. It wasn't like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what else I would expect to be there or not be there. It's just like, if I was stocking up on stuff, I'd be stocking up on foodstuffs and things, because you can always find some substitute to, like, clean your butt. Worst comes to worst, you can just stick it under the faucet and wash it. But just does not seem like the one thing that would absolutely be, you know, necessary. But anyway, I digress, as I do with everything. So anyway, all of this got me thinking about the whole coronavirus thing, and the fact that maybe if I went to a doctor at this point, maybe, just maybe, they could do a test and find something out. And then I started thinking about that. First of all, there probably isn't a test, right? Secondly, what is the cost to me? You know, I'm probably fine. I'm fairly healthy overall, all things considered, and I'm not an older person. So if I go in and get myself tested, there's a chance I'm going to be quarantined. But beyond that, I'm going to have to pay for the damn testing. And I'd have to pay for if they decide to hospitalize me, whether, you know, I mean, whether I allow them to or not, I probably have to pay that. And I've got a kind of insurance that, you know, is kind of a catastrophic insurance policy. That's what I want. It's not because Obamacare forced me to get an insurance. It's because I don't go to the doctor. And if I do go, it's probably because something, in general, it's probably because something's so bad that, you know, I'm probably going to run past, you know, my deductibles, which are fairly high. But, you know, it worked fine for me with my one major illness, where, you know, I ended up probably paying enough, I don't know, it covered enough that it made sense for my insurance so far, at least, although I'm probably back in the red again overall. But yeah, I mean, it's what insurance should be as far as I'm concerned. It's to cover that really massive risk, not to pay off all your possible medical bills. But what that means is that you make economic decisions on every medical thing that you have. And I'm sure as hell not going to go pay money to possibly be forced into a quarantine that I have to pay lots of money for, right? Especially when it's not my health that's really at risk here. I'm go through fairly major illnesses all the time. Beyond that, there's no real ethical reason. Because if I caught something like this, it's because it's all over the place. I mean, it's not like I just traveled to China or met somebody who had, back in January or something, I know a couple of people who went to Taiwan recently, which is, a different matter. I haven't been in contact with them since they got back, mainly because I've been sick and injured my leg, my foot also. But it's just a situation where it's like, shit, there's not even an ethical override here. But even if there was, I could see a large number of people saying, yeah, it's not so bad for me, and I don't want to go through the possibility of having to pay a decent amount of money to be tested for something that's probably not that dangerous to me, and possible additional risks, which is kind of where it all gets really problematic. If this really is a highly transmissible disease with a 3 to 4% death rate on it, well, that's a real problem. I mean, that would wipe large quantities of people out. Now, I'm in favor of wiping large quantities of people out, but not necessarily only culling the old and weak. You want to get the ones at reproductive age, right? You want to go higher than 3 to 4%. But the point is, this could be a much, much worse thing, and it's already going to blossom, and people are going to be like, yeah, if I can hide it, I will. I don't want to suffer the consequences for it. If it's not, this isn't like Black Plague where it's gonna kill most people who get it. So it's like, yeah, take your risks. If you're healthy and it's probably not going to affect you, why would you impose this additional burden? Which is what brings sort of the Chinese reaction. Everybody, at least in Wuhan, everybody get off the streets. We'll deliver food to you. We'll set this up. We're going to quarantine everyone, basically, to prevent this from spreading. But you can't have that without, assuming dictatorial powers. Now, FEMA is actually able to do that, but, I mean, by the time America could ever get in gear to lay down that kind of quarantine, if they can't do it with simple, easy containment of, like with Ebola, where a few people were coming from where there were outbreaks, and they could be easily identified and tested right away as they re-entered. And most of them were in the medical profession who were at any risk at all. So they were more likely to not be looking at, if it doesn't hurt me, I mean, these are people who've dedicated their life to the health of others or whatever. They're a different kind of person than, someone like me who doesn't really think in those terms. There would be a difference, I mean, I've taken some precautions. I'm not the most fastidiously clean person in the world, but at this point, going to the supermarket, I actually cough into my elbow. I washed my hands when I got there so that I wouldn't touch anybody's food or anything improperly. I take some precautions there, but wow, I could imagine a fair number of people. I mean, I'm not the least ethical person in the world. You might be saying, oh my God, you're a monster. Nah, I mean, there's people who maybe are just doing these things without even considering them. And that's going to be an underlying vector, no matter what. And again, I'm not patient zero here, no matter what. I'll take my what limited things I can do, but I'm not gonna risk being quarantined or something like that. And especially, when it's not like wow, if I have this and they catch it this week, that's good. Like, I'll have a chance of survival, but I probably won't have a very good chance if they don't. It's not that kind of personal thing. It's like, I'm almost assured to survive from what we know, but I might be an additional vector out there causing problems for other older people. And it's like, wow, you shouldn't be laying all the burden on the person who may or may not have it to go out, figure out whether or not they can. Yeah, basically, right now you have to basically beg for a test, as far as I can tell. And by the time they're talking about having enough tests deployed or whatever by next week or something, well, I guess this week coming up, but by the time that's all happened, I mean, all these transmissions must have occurred. I don't know. It does really kind of bring into focus just how vulnerable we potentially are. If something is both highly infectious and has a serious implication on it, wow, I'm not sure that the reaction that we've seen here or ever previously is sufficient. And you kind of look to something like that Chinese reaction of, although they took their damn sweet time getting around to finally admitting, and that's why it got so bad there. But you kind of look to something like that as the only way to contain. And even then, it's probably not sufficient, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, clearly there would be similar concerns. Like, let's say the decision was just made, look, anybody can go in and get tested, and if you are, your treatment will be free. Which obviously, if there was socialized medicine, boom, that's right there, right? But as opposed to you must get tested, which is probably the better step to take. At least there, if you want to try to do the right thing, you're not being as heavily penalized for trying to do it. You know what I mean? You're still going to be penalized, right? Nobody wants to be quarantined. Nobody wants to be maybe unable to make it to their work or whatever. So there's a lot of problems across the board in our society with dealing with something like this. But in particular, our particulars of our healthcare system and the fact that the government is not just stepping in and saying, look, come to this free clinic for testing if you want it, and we will take care of you, period, the end, if you test positive, because that is necessary for public health, not for your health necessarily. But your health will gain from that. Well, but there's other problems with going in. Let's say they quarantine you and they throw you in a hospital. A hospital's the worst fucking place to go if you have this. I mean, where are you going to get pneumonia? The best place to get pneumonia is at the hospital. I mean, the last thing you want to do is go to a hospital if you're feeling sick with a flu type thing. I mean, maybe if you're already heavily at risk, but my answer is always curl up into a little ball and hide from the world until I recover, whatever that takes. And yeah, I'm touching my face all over the place, but what can I do, right? There's no reason not to. The plague is kind of contained between my wife and I right now. I didn't go dancing this week because I had a cough. I would normally go dancing when I was as sick as I was. I was feeling pretty lousy, but that wouldn't normally stop me. But at this point, I'm like, well, one, I am vaguely afraid that I might be carrying. And also, the last thing I want to do is be in a position where I'm like, right in front of everybody, in this time of panic. People would at least glare at me, if nothing more than that. Things aren't so bad that, like, I'm expecting to get beaten to death in the alleyway yet. But, it's definitely some things. Anyway, some random thoughts there. As usual, somehow or another, ethics always flows into everything in my life. one of those big ones. The big things I like to study were epistemology and ethics, and those were probably the two that interested me the most. I think there was another one, but I can't remember what. A little stupid. Today, this week, this life, whatever. Let's send it up.